The trainers here at Personal Edge Fitness use a variety of different measurements. Now, when we're tracking somebody's goals or their physical stature, we're tracking things such as weight or using the measurement of body fat measurement to figure out their true fitness and also potential for obesity. We track circumference measurements. We also ask people to track how their clothes fit. When it comes to exercise, well, we track how much weight somebody's lifting or how fast they're doing an activity or how many repetitions they're conducting. But when it comes to the measurement of your intensity during exercise, there's basically two different measurements. There's heart rate and there's rate of perceived exertion. Well, what are those? How do you measure them? What do they tell you? And which one should you use? Heart rate measuring versus rate of perceived exertion today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I appreciate you checking out our podcast, and I appreciate also all the questions that we've been getting, not only for the Ask Katie section, but also in general about questions dealing with health, fitness, and wellness. In fact, this particular podcast came from a question that we had from a client about exercise intensity and how to measure it. Before we get into this, I want to tell you, of course, how to get in touch with us. If you have any questions about dealing with health, fitness, and wellness, or if you have any questions about our Ask Katie section, which is becoming rather popular, you can reach out to us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also contact me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is our website, and also our Facebook page, which many of you may be watching this podcast there, and thank you again for joining us. So hit me up on Twitter at TeamPE if you're so inclined. There's several different, as I said in the introduction, there's several different ways of measuring, and we talk a lot about not only tracking, but we talk a lot about accountability in all the podcasts. And if you want success in your fitness program, you've got to have some sort of accountability. I've said on many occasions, even though we have the most qualified staff in the Southeast, we have some of the nicest facilities available, and also a different variety that we can offer our clients, from online to in-person to in-home, and also corporate training. Besides having that variety, I always tell everybody the number one thing that we sell is accountability. I mean, you're basically turning your fitness program over to a professional, and they're actually tracking you and keeping you accountable. Everything from making sure that you're making it on time to your appointment, to rescheduling if need be. That's where Erica comes in. To tracking your performance, understanding what you did last time, understanding the communication between the trainers about what your goals are and what you're working on. But question that we get quite often, I got just recently, and that is dealing with measuring intensity. You know, where am I as I'm working out? You know, where should I be? How intense should I be in order to beat my goals? Or and whether short-term goals or long-term goals. Short-term goal being, you know, in this workout, I want to see, I want to maintain a certain pace, or I want to try to reach a certain time in a run that I'm doing, or I want to maintain, I want to make sure I'm burning body fat. And the two ways of actually measuring intensity are a method that we've used for years, which is, of course, heart rate training. And then one that is, it's actually, the trainers have used this for years. Exercise physiologists have used this for years. In fact, I remember studying the second one pretty much as early as I studied heart rate training, and that is rate of perceived exertion. And in the first time I ever did testing for stress testing or even submax testing or max testing, we actually used both of them. We were monitoring heart rates, and we were monitoring rate of perceived exertion. And it was interesting to me when we were doing those studies that they came out to be very close. Well, before I start talking about the difference between the two, let me tell you what each one of them are. So, and you may know this, so pardon me for for belittling your intelligence if you already know. But heart rate training is typically based on what we call an age predicted max. It's known as the Kevorkian theory, excuse me, and that is that you take 220 and you subtract your age, and that should give you your maximum heart rate. And then you take a percentage of that maximum to find your heart rate range. Now, typically we use a 60% to an 80% maximum. 80% pretty much being the highest level where you want to train, and typically that's an anaerobic state of training. And I've talked about the differences between aerobic and anaerobic before, but aerobic means with oxygen. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Aerobic is, I really don't like it, this is tough. I'm doing this run, I'm doing this 5K, or I'm doing this exercise, and I'd like to stop, but I pretty well can keep going, and I can even talk a little bit or complain the entire time while I'm doing this. That's with oxygen. You may be breathing a lot, but you've got enough oxygen to continue. And typically that aerobic range is around 60 to 70% or 60 to 70%. I really wouldn't say much higher than that of your age predicted maximum. The anaerobic stage would be 75, 80, 85%, and that is what I call sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover. And that is you're out of oxygen. You have to stop. You can't keep going in an anaerobic state. If you think that you're in anaerobic, but you're able to continue it for a long period of time, not just a brief EMOM or every minute on the minute type of exercise or a sprint type situation. That is not aerobic. That is definitely anaerobic. And a lot of people think that when they're breathing really hard, well, this is real aerobic. Well, that's because we've always aligned breathing hard with aerobic activity. Actually, breathing really, really hard and having to stop, that's anaerobic. And typically in an anaerobic state, if you continue to do that, you can actually get into a state where you're actually burning a lot of muscle. But in aerobic state, if you go past 15 minutes in an aerobic state, you typically start going into burning fat stores. This is why a lot of people use cardiovascular work to try to burn fat or to try to quote unquote lose weight. And I've gotten into that. I won't get too deep into that today. I've told y'all that that's great. That's fantastic. I like cardiovascular and or aerobic work for maintaining good energy levels, maintaining a good heart and cardiovascular system, but not if you're really aggressively trying to drop body fat. Anaerobic type training is actually better, and the reason I've said that before is during the workout itself, you don't burn as many calories most likely, and burn as much during that bout. But the benefits that you'll get from breaking down muscle tissue in an anaerobic session, after the workout is over, during the recovery phase, and actually gaining more muscle, you'll actually burn more calories because of that anaerobic workout. And I'm going way down a rabbit hole there, but that's basically what heart rate training is tracking that number. How do you track it? Well, there's a variety of different devices, and some cardiovascular machines have heart rate monitors on them. They're fairly accurate. They're not always right on, but they're going to give you a good change. They're going to give you a good difference and get an idea of where you are during the exercise. I will tell you that if you hold on to the monitors the entire time during the bout, you're going to start to get erratic readings. It's better to do checks of them, and you can do periodic checks. It depends on how long you're doing the exercise, but I would say in a 30-minute bout, you want to check it every 3 to 5 minutes. You want to hold the heart rate monitors and find out where you are to see if you're exercising in your quote-unquote zone. And that zone is what I was talking about earlier of 60 to 80%. If you want to be aerobic, then you want to stay 60 to 75% or 60 to 70%, excuse me. If you want to be anaerobic, you want to train higher than that, 75 to 85% of your maximum. There's also ways of determining your max for that aren't age related, and I actually like those better. And you can actually, if you're a fit individual, you can train at a higher heart rate than an unfit individual. And what I mean by that is, when I hear of any kind of fitness measurement, fitness anything associated with time passing on a calendar, that really burns me up because I cannot stand the fact that we use age as some sort of a predictor. It's not a predictor whatsoever. So when you're using the Corvonian formula and you're doing 220 minus your age, well, that's also, if you're an exerciser, you work out most days of the week, keep in mind that age predicted max is also for that person that is your age that sits on the couch and does absolutely nothing. They have the same age predicted max as you, so they're going to have the same rate as you. And I've seen on numerous occasions, in fact, in most occasions with our clients can actually operate at a younger, I'll term it younger if you're using 220 minus your age, they can actually operate at a younger person's heart rate zone than say somebody that doesn't exercise on a regular basis. So that's actually where I find fault with the heart rate and age predicted max and age predicted zones, or using that as a measurement of intensity. It's still good. There's nothing wrong with it. Besides using the monitors on a machine, of course, there are a myriad of devices. And unless you've been living on a rock for the last 10 years, you probably know of these devices. There's Polar was a company that led the charge pretty much in the 80s. They were it. Polar was the company that produced devices that measured. They had the first heart rate monitors, and back then we used to use a lot more heart rate training through the mid to late 80s, and definitely throughout the 90s. In fact, in our facility, we had heart rate monitors that clients could use during their session, and they were good ways of getting an idea of where we wanted to keep a person on target. I'm not against that method, and not against those devices, but they've gotten more sophisticated. Polar's still a good company. They still offer quite a bit, but there are now tons of different heart rate devices out there, and a lot of them that people wear on a daily basis. So Garmin has really seems to have surged ahead as far as the different devices out there, and I wear a Garmin watch myself, mainly not for just heart rate, but I use it because I'm measuring all my different multi-sport activities and my steps throughout the day, what have you. Fitbit is another company. They started out just by measuring steps and stairs and caloric intake and expenditure, not caloric. Well, they were measuring caloric intake, but they're also doing caloric expenditure. And they've branched into, for a long time now, they have several devices out that measure heart rate. The Apple Watch is another device that typically measures heart rate, and I like the fact that people pay attention to their heart rate, whether it's in exercise or not. I think it's beneficial to understand what your heart rate, where your heart rate operates on a normal basis. We used it a lot for doing testing on how fit you are. And that is if you're able to track, and you can do this on several of these devices. Garmin does it. I know Apple Watch does it. But you can track your resting heart rate. And resting heart rate is a fantastic measurement on how fit you are. And so I'm a fan of heart rate, but I'm not as big a fan of heart rate in using it during the workout as I am measuring your level of fitness as far as your resting heart rate is concerned, and getting an idea of how fit you are. The lower your resting heart rate is, typically the more fit you are, and actually you sleep better because of that. So I would lean more towards heart rate measurement that way. Now, getting over to rate of perceived exertion, the RPE scale is something that's been out for years. It's changed a lot. They've varied it some, but typically an RPE scale is a subjective measurement. And you use a scale of between 1 and 10. 1 being really almost asleep. I'm not really exercising hard. I'm really not doing anything. I wouldn't even call what I'm doing exercise. It's 1. Whatever I'm doing, I could do it for days. And in your, again, it's a subjective measurement. So typically on an RPE scale, they will have recommendations. And a 1 would be basically being at rest. A 4 or 5 would be, manageable, easy, but starting to get harder. And as you get to 10, 10 is an all-out. 10 is anaerobic. 10 is the highest. 10 is something that most likely you will not be able to maintain. And that gives you an idea. So when we are talking to subjects, when we're doing testing for submax testing or max testing in cardiovascular fitness, early on they should give us about a 2 or 3 as they get going. As we start to increase the incline and increase the speed on a treadmill, they will start going 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll probably top out on a max test. We're going to take them to 10, and we're going to top out there. And usually that's going to correlate with the heart rate. I use not only do I use this, but trainers typically use a measurement, an RPE type of measurement that they're doing themselves. Once you start working with a client, you start learning that client. You start it from day one, and we tell all of our clients in their consult that the first few workouts are getting to know you. We've got to learn you. You've got to learn us, and we start. It's sort of like playing poker. We start recognizing when a client is really struggling, or when they're just, it's hard for them, but they could actually keep going. And a good trainer, a good exercise physiologist like our staff, can read when we're probably at a 7 or 8. We need to start to curtail this intensity, curtail this exercise, look for a rest period, or when a client is saying, gosh, I don't like this or whatever, but they're really at a 4 or 5 and they should keep going. And that's what a good trainer does. We get feedback from the clients, either straight out asking them, hey, where are you on the RPE scale? You're at 10, you're at 4, you're at 5, you're at 8, where are you? Or we're reading it ourselves. Somebody say, God, I want to stop doing this, and say, no, we can keep going. That's part of our job, is to push you beyond your limits if that's what you're looking for, and also keep you safe. We do have clients that would push it to the ultimate max, go past 10 and try to keep going, and that gets into a dangerous territory. And again, that's our job to make sure they don't get past that. The RPE scale can be, when you're doing it yourself, you can lie to yourself. It's real easy to convince yourself to stop exercising. Oh gosh, I'm probably at 10. I probably need to stop. Since it is subjective, there's not a wearable RPE scale. Then yeah, you can monkey with it, you can fiddle it. And we've had clients early on that have kind of fooled us. They're really at a 4. We thought they were at an 8. They convinced us they were at 8. We stopped exercising. That didn't last very long though. Not with a good staff, not with the qualified staff that we have. We're going to be able to tell when somebody is at that maximum, what have you. So, and which is why in 23 years, knock on wood, we haven't had an occasion where somebody has taken it past the limit and been in real danger. Beyond an upset stomach from time to time, rare occasions, usually we don't take it past that point. But we do bring people up to the level where they are, helping them getting in better shape, helping their cardiovascular system overall, and helping them actually lower that resting heart rate through being able to measure their rate of perceived exertion while they're exercising. Now, obviously the difference between the two, one of them's objective, one of them's subjective. There's the challenges you have with the objective one being heart rate is the fact that it can give you kind of false numbers. And what I mean by that, it may be your true heart rate, but I learned this about a client about 15 years ago, and I was training him on using heart rate method, and we would take a break, and he would be thinking, look, I'm breathing hard, my heart rate's up, but I can keep going. Let's go. And found out through his rate of perceived exertion that he looked like on his numbers, according to his age predicted max, he should have been at an 8 or 9. Well, his age predicted max, like I said earlier, because he was in good shape, he could actually operate at a higher heart rate. And so I'm using somebody that at the time he was in his 50s. We were using age predicted max in that territory, and he actually was operating at an age predicted max of someone in their 40s and having no trouble whatsoever being able to maintain that level. And so that's where the objective number, it does give you a hard, fast number. It does tell you where your heart rate is, but especially when you're in really good shape, it can be a false positive. RPE, like I said a minute ago, the pitfalls of it are that it is subjective, and somebody, you can fool yourself, or you can possibly full of trainer, and a good trainer, trainer with a degree in the field, been doing this for a while, like my staff. You're not going to fool them very long. So the rule of thumb on it, if you're really interested in getting into, and you're starting exercise and you're getting into it, and you want to know which system to use, I would use this as your rule of thumb. If you're new to exercise, if you're just getting started, and you really want to keep yourself in a safe range, then I would highly recommend using the heart rate method. That's going to be a wearable. You're going to be able to track it. And also, most of the wearables are going to graph it for you. They're going to keep historical data on it. So you can go back and look where you were 3 weeks before and where you are now. And a fantastic method. But I would say once you've been exercising for a while and you're really into this and you're starting to really make changes, you're getting more intense, you can handle higher intensity levels, and you want to handle those higher intensity levels because you're interested in making those goals, then I'd switch to RPE. I would switch to more of a rated perceived exertion, especially if you're working with a qualified trainer and where they're helping you monitor your RPE. When in doubt, use both. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If you're really into exercise, most likely you're using some wearable, you're using some device that's going to track your heart rate. So that'll give you kind of an idea. And if you want to know, wow, I'm kind of curious, I feel like I'm at an 8. See how it compares to your heart rate. You may be what I call bang on. You may be, I feel like I'm at an 8, and you look at your heart rate, and you find out your heart rate is at 75% of your training zone. Well, that's going to be 8 territory. If you're 85%, that's going to be 10 territory. So it's a good way to track both of them. So, look, this is a very condensed version of explanation of the two ways of measuring intensity. Both of them are good. As you can tell, I've got a kind of a favorite. I'm more into the RPE because I work with a lot of, I've been training people for 32 years now. I've got clients who have been with me 20 years. I'm going to use more of an RPE with those folks, but I think both of them are fantastic. I think both of them are a good way of measuring. And if you're interested in knowing more about this, especially for your particular goals, if you're interested in burning body fat, you're interested in increasing your athletic ability or training for a particular sport, you're interested in knowing exactly where should I be on these measurements and which one should I use, hey, give us a call. Contact us at area code 251-278-3343 or reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. Contact us through our website. Let us help you design the right intensity level and the right measurement for your fitness, because we're interested in you hitting your goals, and we're interested, of course, in you reaching your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today. Stay tuned for our next podcast, and have a great day.